Welcome to another episode of the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards. If you've ever wondered whether sales is talent or science, passion or process, today's guest says it's all about structure and mastering it. Marco Barbi is the Chief Sales Officer for AWE, an archaeologist by education, and a man who once finished a sales presentation while bleeding it through his pocket after slicing his finger mid-demonstration. We'll ask about that. That story alone might convince you he was born for this craft. In his new book, Seventh Power of Seven, A Short Guide to Sales Mastery, Marco breaks down what he calls a refined linear procedure for creating the perfect sale, built around seven fundamentals, seven steps, and seven pillars of goal setting. Systems designed to increase closing percentages and build long-term consistency. From kitchen knives in college to expanding sales operations across North America, Marco has turned selling into both an art and a repeatable science. Marco Barbi, welcome to the Speaking of Writers podcast.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you here joining us from Canada. You trained as an archaeologist at the University of Calgary. That's
That's
not
right.
the typical pipeline
No,
into sales leadership at all. What
definitely
pulled
not.
you from excavation sites to sales floors?
Yeah, it's an interesting story actually. So I had graduated out of the University of Calgary. Love archaeology. I've always loved history in general. And once I graduated, I realized I needed quite a bit more money to go and do my master's degree. I wanted to do a master's degree, which was quite popular at the time in the Netherlands. And so I thought to myself, look, I need a job, right? I need to find something. And during my university career, you were talking about it as well. I knew I was okay at sales anyway. I was selling kitchen knives to pay for weekends and things like that, right? So I thought, you know what? I'll look for another sales, another sales gig and see if I can make some money, go do my master's. And that's actually, I ended up meeting my wife, who was the regional distributor for this office in Calgary at the time, and just fell in love with sales and everything that went with it. And so I stuck to it.
Yeah, you said a money draining Euro trip pushed you into sales.
That's
Was
right.
it
That's right.
survival at first, or did you feel the spark immediately when you did get into sales?
Um, I really fell in love with the fact that, first of all, you're talking to people all the time. I enjoy communicating with people, having a relationship with individuals, and then the idea of building business out of thin air, right? The idea that you could really manage and control your own income to a certain degree. So it was a love at first sight, I have to say. Yeah. And that's when I was first introduced actually to the Seven Fundamentals of Sales by Tim Mulcahy, which are heavily discussed in the book as well. It's something that really started me on this process of trying to understand sales at a deeper level, right?
Yeah. Yeah, your
Yeah,
book builds on Mulcahy's Seven Fundamentals of Sales. What about that framework resonated so deeply with you?
a great question. I mean, I could tell right off the bat that there was high performing individuals and those who we tend to call the shooting stars of the business, if you will, which, might have a good few months and then kind of disappear. And it had to do with consistency and had to do with real training. So treating sales as a craft and falling in love with the craft, if you will, as opposed to just being a good talker. And something that we do mention in Seventh Power of Seven quite a few times is that a good talker does not necessarily make a good salesperson, and a good salesperson does not necessarily make a good sales manager. So it was really the training behind it and the structure behind it that I really fell in love with, and it was really developing a craft, right? So that's really what resonated with me. And Tim really had a very good structure of what needed to be done throughout every presentation in order to get from point A to B in the most respectful and efficient manner with the client, right? So I really like that.
Yeah, you talk about being obsessed with crafting the quote perfect presentation.
That's right.
What does a perfect sale look like to you?
Well, a perfect sale is a sale that doesn't take, first of all, too long, that doesn't annoy the customer, if you will. A perfect sale should be conducted as quickly and effectively as possible. But in the meantime, applying these fundamentals and building a genuine relationship with the client, right? So how do you do that? You could be amazing at building rapport, and we see it a lot of the time where good talkers think that they can do amazing in the business, but then really don't have that structure. They lack that sense of structure, and in that case, once again, these are individuals that could be so much better than they currently are, and they just need that sense of training and structure. And so a perfect sale, once again, should be quick, efficient, respectful. It should be a sale where you are able to build not only that business out of thin air, but also be able to build a long lasting relationship, right? A long lasting partnership, business partnership, where you could go back in 5 years, 6 years, and there's still a connection there, right? And that's what, once again, Seventh Power of Seven tries to tackle a little bit, for sure.
All right, Marco, I said we'd talk about this in the introduction. Let's talk about that knife presentation story. You cut your finger badly. You
I
kept
did.
going. You finished
I,
the sale. What
that's
did
right.
that moment teach you about commitment, pressure, and mindset, too?
That's exactly it, right? I mean, yeah, it was funny story. With We used to sell these very high-end kitchen knives and kitchen knife sets, and so part of the presentation was that you would cut through leather, and you would actually cut through pennies with these scissors. The great quality products,
Mm.
just amazing quality. They were quite expensive, but the presentation, kind of led customers to believe, oh wow, this is true, this is amazing. We would have them compare their own knives to our knives and so on. And during this presentation, as I'm cutting the leather, I go to cut the leather and I cut my finger quite deeply. So I notice that I'm starting to bleed quite heavily. And so I just put my left hand in my pocket. I continue my presentation with my right hand, get back to the car, realize my pants are full of blood. So it was funny. But it's once again, right? Being able to just stay focused on that step to step to step presentation and just committing to the process, right? It truly is a sense of commitment and appreciation for the crafts. So it was good.
What is the biggest mistake sales professionals make when they try to just wing it?
Well, the biggest mistake, which is we actually talk about in Seventh Power Seven as well, when it comes down to the veteran slump, it really does become over talking and being overly salesy, right? I refer to it as that 1950s used car sales approach from back in the day, right? And the reality is that I think, especially in today's world, what needs to be done, and it's the best way to conduct business, really, is almost be apathetic towards the income, or not the income, sorry, apathetic towards the outcome of that sale or of that appointment, right? When there is a sense of apathy where the sales representative is not overly attached to that financial outcome and the wolf is not at the door, then it becomes a more enjoyable process for both parties, right? It becomes a true conversation, it becomes a deeper conversation. And so, going back to your question, I really think that the biggest mistake that a lot of people do is they're overly salesy, overly talkative, and they think that just by exposing ample amounts of information to the customer, that customer will eventually, get to a point of sale, right? Which is not the case.
You know, for someone listening or watching this podcast who struggles with closing, what's usually missing? Confidence, clarity, or just process?
I would say process, right? I would definitely, and that's a good point. I would definitely say process, because we also see a lot of sales professionals that are very confident in their abilities and still don't meet those, higher ending achieving quotas, if you will. And it really does come down to process. I've seen a lot of individuals over the years in training, many people. We've noticed that. Tonality might have been fantastic. Their knowledge of the product or service might have been fantastic, but there was simply that step A, or step 1 to 2 to 7. We talk about the 7 steps in Seventh Power of Seven. They weren't able to really guide the conversation in a way that was clear to the customer, right? So a little bit all over the place,
Yeah.
right? And so that tends to be, I think, the most common problem that we see in sales presentations overall.
Marco, why the number seven? What makes that structure effective psychologically and practically too?
Yeah, I mean, when we as we have developed all these training programs, Tim Mulcahy is the master, the one that came up with the seven fundamentals of sales, and around the same time, we started developing what the linear process is, which is the seven steps. And so this number seven has always been kind of, always left its mark in the industry. That seven fundamentals, seven steps, and then, of course, the seven pillars. So we decided to name the book Seventh Power of Seven, because if you're able to master all pillars, whether it's the seven fundamentals and the seven steps, then you're getting to a point where you're really mastering your own sales presentation and productivity.
It's all about the seven.
That's
You
right.
emphasize stability and consistency over time. How do you
Yes.
prevent burnout in a career that's often, commission driven and high pressure too?
Yeah, and that's the biggest one when it comes down to goal setting. There's really two different ways, right, to look at it. So on a daily basis, a very common mistake that a lot of sales professionals make, I think, and which brings a lot of stress, is that they will spend ample amounts of energy with customers that simply don't want it, right? And being able to prospect at a higher level where you can then um, get in front of potential customers that might actually be willing and interested. These are individuals that will spend a lot of time rebuttaling and objection handling, and that actually creates daily burnouts. So that's more on the daily and presentational side. Now, when it comes down to a more consistent, I want to have a consistent 12 months, year, 2 years, 3 years, goal setting really becomes the key here, and being able to really understand energy levels and work accordingly. I'm very against the fact, and this is a very common misbelief, unfortunately, in sales overall, where work hard, work hard, work hard, and if you don't get a say, keep going, keep going, keep going. That's absolutely true, and you definitely need to work hard to make it in sales. But at the same time, also recognizing in our company, for example, we have trip contests and so on. A lot of sales companies do, but we actually provide ample amounts of time to relax and decompress and goal set. And we take that time to really goal set and refresh, if you will. Right. So being able to master that energy level and understand that energy level, and then creating habits that unfortunately with many sales companies we do not see, but to create sales habits and winning habits on a daily basis, like vitamin programs, workout routines, meditation. I'm a big fan of the 20-20-20 rule, right? Meditating for 20 minutes, reading for 20 minutes, exercising for 20 minutes. These are all things, creating those daily victories and non negotiables that really make a massive difference in one's sales career, right? And the shooting stars that we call sometimes, unfortunately, don't really follow that process. They'll do very well for 6 months and then, dissipate into thin air, right?
You met your wife during the early years of your
That's
sales
right.
journey. How did building a family shape your approach to business?
Well, I have to consider myself lucky because my wife, having been in the business, she understands how it does work sometimes, and the traveling and this and that, and maybe spend more time at the office, whatever the case may be. But I have to say one thing. I'm more than happy that, first of all, she taught me some of the things that are also shared in Seventh Power of Seven, but that we're also able to, when it comes down especially to goal setting strategies, to kind of pass that on to our kids and try and create those winning habits. I told my wife, and this is something that we agreed on a couple of years ago. And we said, look, no matter what our kids want to do when they grow up, whether they want to get into university, start their own business, whether they want to do archaeology or engineering, doesn't matter. But, after they graduate high school, we're going to send them, to knock some doors for at least a month or two, right? So that they can get used to those rejections, the ability to overcome obstacles. It's something that we're definitely going to force them to do, regardless of what they decide to do.
Well, here comes an AI question. In an AI
All right.
driven, automated world that we're in
Yes.
now, what will never change about selling?
Well, and that's a great question, right? And AI is obviously becoming a major component now, and to a certain extent, we utilize it as well. However, the reality is that regardless of what AI is able to offer, at the end of the day, I think that customers still want to know who lies behind, whether it's a website, an AI platform, whatever the case may be, they still want to have that personal connection with someone that they could talk to, where if there is an issue, if there is a question that they could call directly, someone that could go and see that place of business. So I think when it comes down to the selling component, I don't think it's ever really going to make that big of an impact, in my opinion, because customers still want to deal with someone who's personable and is able to build a connection, a true connection.
And if you could go back to that young graduate selling knives on weekends,
Yes.
what would you tell him now?
uh, find Tim. Go look for Tim. Yeah, yeah. That's probably what I would tell him. And structure your presentation right away. Yeah.
And what is next for you and your writing? Working on another book?
Well, we would love to build a book, which also revolves around some of Tim's teachings, which is more on the managerial side of things. So this was supposed to give more of I guess, a blueprint, a bit of an outline as to what needs to be done to succeed in sales. The next one will be more for a sales management, from a sales management perspective.
Marco Barbi's book that's out now is Seventh Power of Seven, a short guide to sales mastery. Whether you're new to sales, a seasoned entrepreneur, or someone simply looking to sharpen your ability to communicate and influence with integrity, this book lays out a structured, practical system designed for long-term success. Marco, thank you for joining me here on the Speaking of Writers podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
And the book is available wherever books are sold. And don't forget to subscribe to the Speaking of Writers podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for watching. I'm Steve Richards.